Is everyone? Are we good?
Sure.
Are we in the zone?
Yeah.
In the zone, auto zone.
Yeah. Pizzone zone. The
Pizzone
locale Pizzone
Well,
zone.
I'll see if I can get this. Welcome! Rough Draft Research is back. I'm AJ, the button pusher, here with the gurus, Daniel and Christian. If you missed it last week, we vetted the vets, we've done the rookies, we've done the sophomores, we've done the juniors, in a draft coming up around the corner. I think we got a little senioritis. So we have formed a new startup league with some Dynasty virgins, so it kind of sparked this idea of a startup 101. So we're going to kind of give you some of our tips and tricks, our ride or die, our strats and faps. Faps.
We're sharing our faps.
If you want to. We're giving away the farm, folks. So if you are in this league and you don't watch this episode, that's your fault. No sympathy. We are peacocks. Let us fly.
Oh, yeah.
So
Take
with
over
that,
the water jug.
Exactly. So let's start with Christian. Kind of some commish tips, because it's a fucking hellish nightmare, my friend.
Yeah, first time commish on this league.
Yeah, and if you're anything like me, you didn't want to be commissioner, but it's just a thankless job that no one really wants to do typically.
For sure.
So here's some things I've picked up being somebody that I wouldn't call a strong commissioner. I've been kind of trying to pick up things. I'm more of a kind of go with the flow type guy. First of all, on that note, I think having bylaws, and this is something in our Superflex league that I was really impressed with Paul, having the bylaws ready and being able to give it to people, I think is a very useful tool so that they don't always have to pester you, and having that beforehand, everyone can read it and decide if they want to be in the league or not, because that's my very next point is don't do the votes. Voting's fucking stupid. It takes forever. It makes everything way down. People never agree. Then you get people that don't vote. It's just dumb. Tell everybody what it is, and if you really need to change something, then have one fucking vote about it. But don't do this thing where you vote on everything, and you can't. But the thing is, when you set a precedent in a league, just remember you can't really change it. So just set that up front. Yeah, so I really like that. I also liked it as a setting the tone for the league, which is another thing I did. Paul did really well, where he kind of gave the league a very specific tone with the fun wording of the bylaws, which I think you could do, and it's something that could make everyone a little more invested on draft night if you kind of changed it and made it fun. More specific things though, I recommend no draft pick trading. It overcomplicates the draft. It makes you not be able to focus with too many picks moving around. And for me personally, I overthought it. So I would recommend, if you're even doing a draft with draft pick trading, I would just sit tight. If I were you, I can get on to how I overthought it later. And then just the last couple things, make sure everybody's there on the draft day, or at least available. Our league got fucked by people working during the startup draft, and it kind of threw it off the rails. And this is my final point. Startup draft's really important. If it looks weird, just pause it and figure it out. We had a guy who auto drafted 7 quarterbacks in a row, and that shit has hung over the league to this very day, and we're about to start year 5. Yeah. And so just don't let it happen. After the 3rd quarterback went, I should have just paused the draft, figured out what the fuck was going on, and stopped it then, and then it would have been a non-issue.
And on that note, if someone does do that, you don't ever let it go. You bring it up anytime they try to make a rule change, you throw that in their face. You end it, you squash it immediately.
Every time you're doing a live stream of the NFL draft and you think they're not listening, you trash them, and then they comment every time. because of course they're watching when you start doing that shit. But well, man, that's great. I'm the commissioner, I guess.
Yeah.
He's head wrangler. AJ's head wrangler, and I am the commissioner. And I've done none of these things. I'm not allowing voting. I just made a league that I would call the most straightforward possible, and therefore I feel it needs no explanation to anyone, regardless of experience with Dynasty, Life, Fantasy Football, the Sleeper app, FanDuel, esports. No explanation whatsoever. Ask me a question, and I will get back to you in a way that only confuses you further. So that's what's up when I'm the commish.
That's our commish, dude.
I should type some bylaws in. I'm doing positional limits, which I really like the idea because we do have some new folks, and there may be a potential for auto drafting, which I really hope not. But even runaway drafting or poor drafting, hopefully I'm trying to keep the bumpers in the lane. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So keep everyone straight. So it might need some tweaking, but I'm trying to keep it competitive, trying to keep the waivers fresh.
Yeah,
I like it.
Yeah, so we can get into that later or not. It doesn't really matter.
Hey, this is a free form right now, man.
Yeah, I guess if these are people in this league, you should know that. I think I've limited the quarterbacks to 4. The running backs to 6, the wide receivers to 8, and the tight ends to 4. So it gives you some flexibility. I'm sure it'll need tweaked, but
well, I think the first question that kind of pops into a mind of someone who first starts Dynasty is like how to draft, right? Because it's completely different from redraft. There's a lot going into it, so I'd say we kind of dive into some of our personal strategies. I mean, who wants to take it away? Daniel, you got something? Christian, go for it.
Oh, well, so I just think just having a little bit more experience with Dynasty drafts, I think finding out how to value rookies is a very difficult thing to do because going into a rookie draft, I had the fear of almost overvaluing rookies. I didn't want to take them way too early and then them fuck my team over, but then I was too scared to take them late. And my thing is just don't be afraid of rookies. Just treat them like players that you already have. Last year I drafted Jamar Chase in the 4th round, which people weren't it was actually right around where his ADP was, but I remember in the draft
at the table.
Yeah, I got shit talked at the table for people not knowing who he was. And now maybe you want Justin Jefferson more, and that's the only guy you want more than Jamar Chase right now in a Dynasty league. So, just go for it. I did the same thing in 2018 in our For the Belt league. I got Nick Chubb after his ADP fell because people were kind of trying to figure out where rookies are. And now everyone would love to have Nick Chubb. So for me, I just think treating them more like players if you believe in them. If you're not super high on him, don't reach just because he's a rookie. But I definitely think grabbing those guys, because now you have them forever. It's a long haul. It's not a sprint.
Yep. And there's a lot of relief in knowing that you have that receiver locked in to your starting lineup for probably 4 to 5 to 8 years.
Yeah.
Which is incredible.
100%.
It's an incredible feeling.
My Superflex team is fairly bad, and it's in a rebuild. And the one thing I can hang my hat on is that Jamar Chase is on it.
Yeah.
Yeah, to counter what you're saying is it's risky. You totally. Pick a player based off of never seeing them play, and you have to hope that they're awesome. Jamar Chase, obviously awesome. It's worked out pretty well, but if you had gone Clyde Edwards-Helaire before he took a snap, it could have blown up in your face. But yeah,
sorry, go.
I was going to say, to your point about valuing rookies or taking them seriously, I got a couple numbers on that, and Javonte Williams' ADP last year was 52 in a Superflex startup, and Jamar Chase was 37 in a Superflex startup. And this year, they're both top 3 at their positions. You know what I mean? Yeah. So the fact is that they will never be more affordable rookies will never be more affordable than they are in a startup draft. So you have to, for the longevity of your team, you have to invest in some of them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I guess, yeah, no, I completely agree with you because it is always inherently risky. And that's why I don't recommend doing it with just every rookie. Like, don't just take rookies for rookies' sakes. But if you're high on a guy, I guess don't be afraid of him being a rookie. Don't let that scare you from taking a guy. Because I almost didn't go Jamar Chase there. And now, like, what would my team look like without that on it? But exactly right, though. If it doesn't work out, it does fuck you harder. So you don't want to just grab guys unless you're really high on them. I guess just don't let the rookie tag scare you is more my point.
Yeah. And I'd rather not regret taking the rookie than regret missing out on him.
That's fair too.
I mean, you can eventually adjust if you make a bad pick. You know, that's what Dynasty is all about. That's why I love it. You can have a really bad team, and if you do your research and get lucky, you can really turn a team around, but you can't not make that pick. So,
and that's another thing too that I'll get into a little later. But also, like, because it's a marathon and not a sprint, like, okay, maybe you have a bad year, but these are not. It's not undoable to overcome a bad draft in a dynasty league. Like, it's much harder in a redraft league. Now, you still don't want to do it by any means. It's just, I don't know. You can take a little more risk, I think.
yeah.
Hell yeah, you can. I've got like 20 different sections of notes for this, so it's fun that like we're gonna tickle all of them as we go.
Yeah.
It's gonna be fun. So I guess I'll go to my next point, which I thought we're talking startup strategies, right?
Yep.
This is a mistake that I made in my first Dynasty startup that I don't want anyone else to make because it's easy to make. But I think the most important thing in a Dynasty startup is to establish a roster that has a diversity of career arcs. Because in our Dynasty startup for the belt, back in 2018 when I was a young man, I went super young at some like the wide receiver position, and then I went over the hill at the running back position, and it just didn't work out. I didn't have enough year two established guys. I got a little too infatuated with the names I had recognized, as being, I drafted like Shady McCoy and Jay Ajayi, and like they had 1 year of relevance and then fell completely off. So it's important to, across every position, to try and chart like youth, guys that are getting ahead of steam, and then established vets that have 1 or 2 good years left, and not leave yourself in a position where your roster is going to age out or you're waiting too long for something to take off. You want it to be fun and enjoyable. So get some solid established guys, but also have some little nuggets that you're hoping on, some of that youth. But,
100%.
Yeah. I mean, I'd made the same mistake in the same draft. My, 6th overall pick or whatever it was David Johnson. And he had, sure, he played up until last year, but he was not the David Johnson that I fell in love with in redraft because I was so unfamiliar to the fact that, oh, shit, I have to have some amount of longevity, but I didn't plan for that. So I also fell off at the running back position, had to make trades to even become relevant to the point where I am now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think to couple that, everyone always talks about handcuffs, and you can do a different form of handcuff, in my opinion, in a dynasty league. It's the old young handcuff. If you draft an old guy, now the next guy at that position, or at least remember, let's go young next. Like if you're in between 2 guys, say it's Shady McCoy and whoever, Nick Chubb, in 2018, and you can't decide which one of those guys you want to go with. Oh, well, I took David Johnson earlier. Why don't I fucking take Nick Chubb then, just in case?
Right.
I think that's a good, like, kind of balance you can try to strike. It's not going to hit every time, obviously, just like any draft isn't going to hit every time. But if you can kind of use that as a rule of thumb, I think it'll help you out.
Yeah.
The important thing is to think about it, right? Like that's I think that's the takeaway, you know. For you guys who have never done a startup, it's have a plan and think about it in like 3 or 4 different ways, you know. Think about your depth and your age at a position. Think about, you know, where your team is in 3 or 4 years. And don't forget to address, you know, don't skip positions because it's okay to do that in a 1 year league, and then you can maybe trade or pick up a waiver or just top load. But as your team ages, a weak position really kind of makes you weaker, especially if you have to use high rookie draft assets to address something that you know could have easily addressed in the 8th or 9th round of your startup draft.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. It was actually one of the points I had. Sorry, did I cut you off, AJ?
No. I was just
Okay.
agreeing.
So yeah, I had it on here. Try to be well-rounded, and this goes with everything. Because the temptation and there's logic in it, to a point. If you overload a specific position, like say you get all the great wide receivers, then okay, I'm going to be dominant at that position. I can build around it later. But honestly, from my experience, it makes that hole on your roster even that much brighter. And then you would just immediately start looking for ways to trade to fix it. So what's the point?
Yeah.
Just get a diverse group of guys that you like and go from there. I'll use a perfect example. Last year in our Superflex startup, I went quarterback rounds 1 and 2. I thought, oh, let's do this. Let's get 2 quarterbacks, just say fuck it and go. And I also made a trade, which goes back to my don't do draft pick trades. And that kind of ended up screwing me, but that was a different circumstance. But what basically happened was I had these 2 awesome quarterbacks, and then Russell Wilson got hurt. And then the rest of the depth of my roster wasn't very good. And then I dealt with a bunch of injuries, and I was just absolutely fucked. My roster wasn't going to be great overall necessarily. I didn't have the best draft, in my opinion. But then injuries just absolutely derailed anything I could do, because now I don't even have like a viable chance. Now I don't have pieces to trade because everybody I had was hurt and I had no depth. So yeah, it was cool. I've got these 2 awesome quarterbacks, but I immediately started looking for ways to trade Russell Wilson. And it's made it clunky. And I just think getting a very, very balanced roster of a guy of where you can look and like, okay, maybe you're not dominant anywhere, but you're good everywhere.
Yeah.
Heck yeah.
I was also going to say it's also not as easy, I think, in Dynasty to make these trades, because there's a lot of attachment that comes into these guys because they're your team, like they're your baby. So don't just expect like, oh, I'm going to take the best value at all these positions, because people have different values based on if they like vets or rookies. So don't plan to trade just because you think, you know, someone like Chris Godwin's going to be the next bee's knees when you should have taken a running back there, because then you don't have the depth. And I've been in positions where I have like 4 or 5 stellar wide receivers, 1 good running back, then no other depth on my chart. So kind of what you were saying. And I can't trade a receiver because, you know, receivers are a dime a dozen. People don't care. The value between the wide receiver 12 and a young wide receiver 30, they're like, I'll stick with this guy and try to feel him out. And the next thing, I'm over here with shitty running backs, and that's like the foundation of your roster. So
Yeah,
definitely
100%.
find that foundation and then build out from there and then start taking chances. Kind of my strategy anyway.
Yeah. No, I'm right there with you. I do think that problem is a little more pronounced in the For the Belt League. For the record, for anyone listening, we do 2 receivers in 1 flex. I know a lot of leagues have moved to 3 receivers in a flex, where that problem, I think, does kind of thin itself out, where now receivers have a little more value because you have to start 3 of them. But it's still a problem. Receivers are way harder to trade than running backs, and quarterbacks for that matter, in a super flex. So yeah, you overload, exactly what AJ's saying. You overload with all these awesome receivers, and then you can't do anything with them because no one wants them.
Yep.
Hell yeah, man. So this is where you tell them to get their guys.
Get your motherfucking guys.
100%. Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna bang that drum every time. get your guys, get the guys you believe in. You want to be happy. Like AJ's saying, this is your baby. This roster's not something you throw away at the end of the year. It's something that you build, and you want to have it for I theoretically until you die, basically.
Yep.
But I did want to add a small caveat to that. Get your guys, and don't be afraid to miss, because you're gonna miss. In our 2018 startup draft, here are some guys that I missed on going and getting my guys. These are guys I took above their ADP to go up and get them, who ended up being really bad for me. Robbie Anderson, ADP of 911. I took him at 6'1". That went poorly. Devontae Booker, I took in the 10th round at the beginning. He was an ADP of 11 towards the end. That didn't work. Josh Rosen and Sam Darnold, I took picks
it hurts.
at the end of the 11th and the beginning of the 12th, and they were both ADP of the 14th. Elijah McGuire, I took. He wasn't even drafted ADP.
You got to same for Elijah's.
And Equanimous St. Brown, another guy I took who was undrafted. Granted, I got him in the 21st round, so that's kind of throwaway. But here are my hits from that draft. Mike Williams, 712 ADP, got him at 812 ADP. I took him at 712. He ended up working out. Aaron Jones, I got a pick before his ADP. And then Austin Eckler, I took in the 17th round, and he wasn't being drafted. So I went, and, that ratio is not very good, but those three guys have helped build my roster. I traded two of them, but got a lot of picks, and Aaron Jones has been a stalwart on my roster ever since. So it's one of those things, like, you're going to miss. Don't be afraid to miss. Just go get the guys you believe in, and you're going to be right and wrong, and you just got to hope you're more right than wrong. But my point is, I had way more wrong right than in that draft. That year, I still went 9-4 and was the third seed in the league. So it's not a nail in the coffin if you have some misses.
How painful to dredge up the ADP on those. I didn't want to go there. Should we just get into some past drafts?
Sure.
You've done a pretty solid job at introducing that 2018 for the belt league. Yeah. Let me introduce a little bit of cautionary tales for everyone. So in this draft, I had the third pick overall, and I started the draft out with Odell Beckham Jr., who had a great year that first year. I followed that up with A.J. Green and then Travis Kelce. So at this point, I'm entering the fourth round at the 410 with no running backs, and I go LaShawn McCoy, because he was awesome, right? He was great at the time. And Jay Ajayi, who's coming off of what I'd call his best year, which was not anything to be too proud of. And then I rolled it straight into Calvin Ridley, Duke Johnson, Anthony Miller, Giovanni Bernard. So what you can see here is that I pretty much messed myself over by not going after a premium position in the running back early. And that's okay. I was fine with it. But it turns out that all of these running backs aren't even on. None of these players are on my team anymore, except for Calvin Ridley. And Odell Beckham Jr., A.J. Green, Travis Kelce, all of my good players that I got out of that early rounds, I ended up having to trade those guys in order to fill the holes in my roster. So I don't know exactly what I'm telling you to do, but what I'm saying is that I didn't approach it in a forward-thinking way. I looked at the now, and I picked these players based on what they had done instead of what they're going to do. So it really takes a bit of effort to get yourself ready for a startup, but it's worth it. Otherwise, I don't know. I'm still having fun. It's obviously changed my life. Here I am today. Yeah. But yeah, when you're like, you know what? It doesn't matter that I'm going 0 RB in the first 3 rounds, because I have Kalen Ballage and Chase Edmonds, and those young guys are going to carry me. Well, sometimes it doesn't go that way. So diversify and really anchor your roster with some of the premium positions, which in a super flex is going to be your quarterbacks and your running backs. Don't go out and go wide receiver. because you're gonna fight an uphill battle going from there.
Yep.
So I kind of learned, I learned a lot over the few years. We'll get into our next startup that we did, and I did quite a bit better than this one. So, AJ, you want to relive the past on yours?
I don't know how to bring up that 2018.
I got it right here, man.
Oh, he's got it.
You want to just review it for me?
Okay, AJ had the 5th overall pick, and he started out. He had some fireworks, though, man. I'm not gonna dog him. So we went David Johnson, then he went T.Y. Hilton. Oh yeah.
Oh.
But then he hit Stephon Diggs. Must love Diggs.
That's when he was a Vikings baby.
Kenyon Drake in the 4th round. Cool. That's not bad, dude.
Just stop.
No, but then he hit Deshaun Watson, Jimmy Graham, Randall Cobb.
Turning Jimmy Graham into Chris Godwin, baby.
I'm see if he has any late wins on here. Yeah, Harrison Butker. That was probably his best.
I did not know a damn thing.
Oh my God, this is bad.
Oh, I didn't know anything. Like, I remember doing the startup, and it got to like round 8, and I was like, I've never heard of any of these people.
Oh, I remember I took.
Who was my last round pick?
You got Thomas Rawls, yeah.
Hey,
I remember grabbing Jonnu Smith in the 21st, just knowing that he was going to be awesome when Delaney Walker was done. But damn, man,
reliving the past here.
So yeah, basically, I mean, it might be. I put a lot of time and effort into that, but I looked at face value. I didn't put myself into the what's going to happen in 3 years or 2 years. So yeah, it's all about understanding that running backs fall off eventually. So come back next week, and we're going to dive completely into that. And then just knowing your roster construction, and what the rare positions are, and attacking those, at least establishing them.
Yeah.
So I'm right there with you guys, but I do want to say, like you were talking about going 2 wide receiver, and it kind of screwing you in the running back game. But I did the exact opposite. I went 2 running backs, and it screwed me just as hard in the receiver game. I went Dalvin Cook, Kareem Hunt with my first 2 picks, Adam Thielen at 3, and where I kind of threw myself off, and this is where you could overcome going 2 running backs. I took Aaron Rodgers 4th, which I don't recommend doing. I'm really happy that Aaron Rodgers is on my Dynasty team, but I really could have used depth there, but I really just wanted to go out and get Rodgers. And then I went Chubb, and then Robbie Anderson and Mike Williams. So I was running out of that league with Adam Thielen, Robbie Anderson, and Mike Williams as my starting 3 wide receivers. Just not going to work. It didn't work. I ended up having to trade Kareem Hunt within the first 5 or 6 weeks of the season, and to get a receiver, because I just wasn't getting enough points from that room.
Which before he got suspended, looking like one of the best running backs in the history of the NFL closing up that season.
100%. And then the other thing, I am staunchly in the grab a premium tight end camp. And I just want to say that because we're talking about Superflex throws it off a little bit. I'd still say it there, but if you're in a non-Superflex dynasty draft, grabbing a tight end in the first 4 to 5-ish rounds, maybe 6, I think is always going to be a good idea. If you could walk away with Andrews, Kelsey, Kittle, Waller, Hawkinson, or Kyle Pitts, you'll be really great, because I think tight end gives you a very unique advantage if you have one of those guys. And it caused me, I was riding out with Trey Burton in 2018 as my starting tight end. And it caused me to trade this little sleeper I had named Chris Godwin, who I got in the 14th round, for Jimmy Graham, because my tight end situation was so bad. And, and that's kind of what I mean. If you can grab one of these dominant guys early, or not maybe even dominant, a guy like a Hawkinson who's towards the end of that pack, something like that will really, really help your roster out, in my opinion. And so it's something to look out for.
No, I agree with you, because what was that, 2 years ago, I came out of the draft desperate. Irv Smith goes down. I had all these high hopes, and then all of a sudden I'm trading a second-round pick for Hayden Hurst. Like, who does that? But I'm like chasing a hope. So kind of similar to what you just said. Next thing you know, you're ruining assets because it's like, who else am I going to play? Fucking Jose DeGuara?
Yeah, I had Trey Burton and Tyler Eifert.
Yeah.
That season. Those were my tight ends.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I came out with Travis Kelce and Mike Gesicki, and ended up being short on the quarterback and had to trade Gesicki in a quarterback deal. And then I was short on running back, and Travis Kelce was the crown jewel in acquiring Alvin Kamara. So
basically the only piece that I still have from that trade. I think everything else just kind of disappeared.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
It was basically Kelce for Kamara. That was what that
Singletary
trade
was hot there at the time.
Yeah, no, like but hindsight,
once it all washes away.
Yeah, it was Kelce for Kamara.
So, that was only made possible because I'm a baller and I got Darren Waller for free in the offseason. So, what up?
That's true.
So basically, that's it. If you don't do your stuff right, you're going to have to become a savant and become an off-season guru, such as myself, just to recover from the embarrassment of a startup draft. So listen, take wise caution from us and use it against us.
And going back to going and getting your guys, if you go and get your guys and then just end up having to sell them because you didn't build a fully complete roster, then what was the point of getting your guys in the first place?
Yep.
Hell yeah, which takes us to the next league. We're going to the Superflex startup from last year, and I just want to give you guys, this is my ironclad approach. So I mocked and I mocked and I mocked my face off. If you guys aren't doing 2 or 3 mocks a day in the 2 weeks leading up, you got to know the names. You got to be ready, because you're gonna end up being in a situation where you don't know what to do otherwise.
Yeah.
So
similar to when our first draft, like I said, after the first 8 rounds, I didn't know who was there. So whoever was at the top of the list, I was taking.
Yep.
And that leaves a lot of room for you to get your guys if you're paying attention.
And my big approach to getting the guys in that league, was in addition to acquiring an extra 6th-round pick by trading with Christian, which we've already established. What I did was I just wrote out the players I wanted on my roster, and I didn't look at ADP or anything. I was like, these are the guys I like. These are my guys. And then I charted them out by ADP, and I figured out like 2 per round, a preferred and then a secondary. And then when the draft came after the 6th round, I just jumped everyone up a round. I said, fuck it.
Exactly what I did.
I'm going after my guys. I don't care if I'm reaching, because after you get past the 6th round, ADP is just popular opinion. And if you want to trust yourself over popular opinion, you're going to feel much better about the team you get, If you don't draft a guy that you're crazy about, whatever the situation is, wherever his draft capital tells you he should be, if you skip him and then he goes off, that's just going to burn you, man. It's just going to it's going to fester in your soul and consume you. So, yeah, that's my big thing, man. Just make the list and go after your guys. Get a team that you're comfortable with.
I couldn't agree with you more. I mean, that's the most important thing. ADP, in my opinion, is really just an assist for you to kind of have an idea of where people are going to go and if they're going to make it back to you. To echo that, just don't get cute. Don't try and win. So part of the issue with this draft, why I made the trade, we did one of those 3rd-round reversals. I didn't really like it very much, so I thought, I'm going to find a way to trade out in front of this, get 2 quarterbacks, and then trade to the front of the 3rd round and kind of take the best running back there available to like circumvent that 3rd-round reversal. And basically I thought I was being really smart and getting really cute. And all it did was absolutely fuck me. It sent me up the river. And also it was objectively probably just a trade I shouldn't have done. But like, even if you do, like, just don't get cute. Just let the draft come to you, have a plan already, and you won't have to get cute. same thing with doing the 2 quarterbacks back to back. It was like me trying to like reinvent super flex football, and it just didn't work. And so I would just say like, just know where to get your guys, practice a lot, know how this is going to go, and then have a plan.
It's all about a plan.
I did the similar approach to you, but I did it. I added positional value as well. So it's like, if I can get this running back in the 3rd round, great. But if not, then I'm going to take this receiver, and then I have to take the 2 running backs after that. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So it's like, I at least, if I can't take this guy in the 3rd, then the 4th and the 5th, I'm taking 2 running backs that I think one will pan out with. And then it's like, you kind of fluctuate with that like value a little bit versus needs, I guess.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. So,
see, mine was, and anyone who knows me by now knows mine was predicated strictly on wide receivers.
Over 6'4".
Yeah. So to me, it was the discipline was the first 6 rounds, and in those first 6 rounds, I ended up with 3 running backs, 2 quarterbacks, and a tight end, and then it was all about getting the wide receivers I wanted, because that's what I know and that's what I love. And so I cheated up the ADP because the value for wide receivers is in the later rounds. And so I set the core of my team in the early rounds by knowing what I needed to make a balanced team. And then with my luxury picks, with my flexibility, I targeted kind of my passion project, the wide receiver room. And I won't even tell you how nasty this team is. You guys already know these 2. I love it. But the funny thing is I only have one of the running backs that I drafted in that league still.
Yeah.
So got a little weird with it.
All right.
Made a pretty sexy trade.
A couple of them.
But yeah, I guess.
Well,
do we want to go through them?
You guys want to go through that super flex?
Kind of.
Let's just talk about a few things that might be pertinent to people who are doing their first Superflex startup.
Well, I think it would be interesting too, just to let people know the first 5 picks were all quarterbacks.
Yep. Yeah, I was going to mention that in the top 20 picks, 9 of them were quarterbacks, just so people have an idea how quick they go.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
But
yeah, and that can change the draft for you too. And if you're in the later part of the first round, be flexible, in my opinion, because like these guys are going to fall. Like some crazy ass names that you wouldn't expect are going to be there at the end of the first round because of the quarterbacks. So if you can't get one of those top 5 quarterbacks, dude, feast on those skill position players that are falling to you. Just let it happen, and then find your quarterback in the mid round when everyone is scrambling to get their skill position guys. So it's a dance you have to do to figure it out. But like I guess just be flexible.
Super flexible.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with that. It's just you gotta make a more than one strategy, especially if you're in that later first round, because if you're sitting there and Christian McCaffrey's at the 1-9, you're like, oh fuck.
I guess I have to do that. I'll mention also that this is a 10-team league, and that 8 of those 10 teams had their second quarterback midway through the 7th round. And by the end of the 9th round, everyone had 2. Nope. There's one guy who waited to get his second in the 12th round. But yeah, so basically everyone had their 2 quarterbacks in the top 8 rounds, you could say. So, just a little warning. You got to look out for the runs. That's a big thing with the super flex.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
So yeah, I don't know. So you guys, I got a couple of tips, and watch for the runs is one of them.
Yeah.
So that's the top one. If you guys just jump in, I'm just going to throw out a couple of.
Well, are you going to explain the runs?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Okay, yeah, I was going to say this is the scariest part of a super flex startup or redraft or any startup really, And it's when, a top heavy position like the running back or the quarterback start to go off the board quickly. Like say you're at the 8th pick and you make your second pick, right? At the 2-2, and you don't have another pick for 18 or 20 players. And then all of a sudden a landslide goes and 10 of the next picks are quarterbacks. You get kind of cornered right there where now you feel desperate. It's crazy because you feel like you have to now take a quarterback, even though everyone is pretty much satisfied their need, but you get in a desperate zone. So you got to watch out for the runs. And a good way to protect yourself against the runs is having a balanced approach to drafting. I would suggest, unless you guys have something to say about runs.
Don't deviate from your plan. Like if you're set on something, don't feel the pressure to have to follow the run. Like if you got a plan, because the last thing you do once you deviate from that plan, if you got a pretty pristine plan, you put in a position you weren't expecting at that point, what's going to throw off your game, and then you're going to start scrambling.
Yeah, I would echo that by saying don't panic if a run happens. Like, do be prepared for them, like Dan's saying, because it is really important. But don't panic, because think about it. If 10 quarterbacks go, don't fucking panic and just take a quarterback next, because everyone just got their fucking quarterback.
Yeah.
So still take advantage of the fact that they let all these skill position players fall to you first, then snag a quarterback in the second, like your next pick, maybe move them up a little bit. But don't just panic pick the next quarterback just because a bunch went.
Yeah. And at the same time, don't push your luck. A lot of times you get trapped in a run because you push your luck. You're like, you think you have more time than you do, but the writing's on the wall. You just get in your own head and you try to get cute with it. So, I've implemented a newer strategy that it's called, this is a Mike Harmon original, one of each. It's my one of each strategy. That's his approach to ladies. He's interested in one of each. So I always like throwing the one of each out there. But I know it's plain and boring, but especially if you're in the middle of the pack, you're the 5th player to pick and you get a pick every 10 players. It doesn't hurt you at all to go, quarterback, running back, wide receiver, running back, quarterback, tight end, and just build something that's kind of safer, I'd say. And then you look at your roster at the end of it, and you've got a solid roster. You've built strong on value, and you're not weak at any positions. So, why not? Why not go the one of each?
I like it.
Strategy. What picks are you? What picks are you guys in this? I'm 3rd.
1-6.
You're the 6th and the 8th. So then me and Christian got to watch out for the corner runs. You know what I mean? So that's another big part of it. Corners are awesome because you get the 1-2 punch. It's really a great place to get your guys because you almost have to reach when you have sizable gaps. You look at the next 20 players and you think that most of them aren't coming back to you. So if you want one of them, you got to go get them. Yeah. But important strategy to implement in the corners is watch the guys between you, right? So you're 8th, right? So if he goes 8th and then the 9th guy picks 2 running backs in a row, he might not feel as pressured the next time he goes into the corner to strike the running back. He knows that the guy doing the bookends behind him might prioritize another position. So he could maybe snipe the position that guy is more desperately needing, knowing that it's less likely for him to take another running back. Yeah,
100%.
Also, if possible, know your league mates and who their favorite teams are. So if you need to hold someone hostage right before them, you do so. You do whatever is necessary to win the league.
Hell yeah, man. And I'm just going down my tips list. Christian, you feel free to jump in here if you got.
Oh no, we've done a lot of mine, probably most. So.
All right. Well, then my last tip is remember, this is not a 1-year league.
Yes.
You're going to find some value. Calvin Ridley, right? Dude's not playing this year. Who knows? Who knows what's going to happen? You run a risk with a player like him. You got guys coming off of injuries that might not start the year playing hot. You know, you got your Chris Godwins, your James Robinsons, like guys who have done it in the past, but they're getting overlooked, especially for people who are used to redraft that know that they're not going to get anything out of these players. But these are guys that could be every week starters after the 2022 season. So, so you got to keep that in mind. You know, always keep your eye on the future when it comes to this kind of stuff.
And pay attention to who's being hyped too.
Oh yeah.
Pay attention to the hype train and then use that to your advantage.
That just triggered a point I had. For people starting your very first Dynasty draft, if you're not super into rookies, like I don't think I was as much, and I don't know about you guys in 2018, how you felt. Well, I know how you felt, AJ, but just if you need a feeler and you don't really know where to start, just Google Dynasty rookie ADP. And it'll show you where these guys are going in just purely rookie drafts. And that will give you an idea of who to look out for, what rookies you can grab, and like who to maybe watch film on or who to like read about before you do your draft.
Hell yeah, Anthony Miller. Coming at me all wrong.
Yeah, and don't undervalue a player that's already proven, that's, you know, going to a new team. Like one guy that our must-love Diggs, you know, that year that he went from the Vikings to the Bills, he was super undervalued because people were unsure about Josh Allen. And then, man, you'd be super happy if you took him at his ADP. I think he was wide receiver 20. So even looking at all this, you know, Tua's not going to be able to throw the ball to Tyreek. He has proven himself. He is a value. So don't overlook a value just because people are out.
Yeah. There's going to be a lot of room for that this year, too, with all the moving pieces at wide receiver. Yeah, Adams, Hill, all these guys that are somewhere else. Don't fall into that trap.
Yep.
Hell yeah. And just like you're saying, you know, it's smart, even if you don't want a certain player, it's nice to draft value, draft household names, stash guys, risky players, because this is Dynasty. You need ammo for trading, man. You're not going to be able to get all the players you want because, you know, the overlap in ADP, you're going to want a couple of guys that went between the 40 and 60 range, but you're only going to get one or two of them. But if you stash someone who is a value, who is a risky guy that pops, then all of a sudden you can slang them, trade, and get the guys you actually wanted. So, you know, don't only go after the players that you got it for, but also don't be afraid to load the deck, man. You need a couple pieces you're not going to miss to survive a Dynasty league.
Yeah, and also if you're in our Dynasty league, when Daniel goes after the new guy who's trying to trade his 30-year-old receiver for your first, don't do it. Don't fall for it yet. The rookie picks have value more than you know. So,
yeah, man. Yeah, always. I'd say it's always smart to just keep your picks unless you know what you're doing, because there are a couple different ways to approach a draft, and I think the win now is probably a very popular one. This is a strategy when you're really targeting, almost like you would a redraft. You're targeting proven commodities or like vets, and you're not really willing to develop a team. So, yeah, how do you guys feel about the win now strategy, where you're going after your Cooper Kupps and your Tom Brady's and guys that are going to bring home the hardware?
I'm into it.
I think it's fine. I would be scared of losing interest once your players get old, because if you do win early, then you're going to have later picks in the first round, and then you're going to like go through this period. I mean, it all takes building your roster though. So, I mean, if you can do it and win and then build a future roster, but I would rather try to, I mean, I'm sure you're about to talk about the three kinds, but the mix would more be mine, where I would want to go.
The balance, yep.
Yeah, the balance is the way to do it. But, you know, when you're in the draft and you're looking at a player like Drake London, you know, who we keep comping to Mike Evans, And, actually Mike Evans' ADP is almost 2 whole rounds later, right? So you're more likely to skip the rookie, go for depth at maybe the running back position, and then go for a Mike Evans who doesn't really have obviously as much time left on the field as a Drake London would. Mm-hmm. So, but yeah, I mean, we've kind of covered the balanced approach. That goes back to the career arc, just trying to keep it balanced. And then obviously you've got the win. I don't know if they call it win later or the youth vote. It's kind of been my thing, But you kind of forego the greed. It's more of a patient approach to really building a true dynasty where you invest in the value of a young player. That you take your Jamar Chases as rookies and your Drake Londons. And you understand that it might not really pay off right away, but you're building something sustainable that will have a long-term success. So you go more for the younger players. You go for your quarterbacks in your 20s as opposed to there's plenty of successful quarterbacks, 33 plus, a ton of them. But, to target them exclusively puts you in a place where you're going to have to make decisions soon. Whereas if you go win later, you build something and hope that you have an excess of value, and maybe you can pick up some of those other pieces you need as your players start to develop. Or maybe you could just sit back and look at, your amazing roster as it blossoms into something badass. Which that's what I'm trying to do. So
that would be fun.
Yeah.
Look out for me. And then there's also kind of the position approach.
I don't recommend it.
Yeah, that's kind of where I'm at. I've tried it, I did the no running back type going into for the belt. Didn't work out. The thing with the wide receivers is that's probably about your best bet because there's value later on. But it's just tough, man. It's the way I'd suggest it is just to keep your roster in mind when you're drafting and fill your starting positions because you're going to need, 2 of each of these players every week, except for the tight end, which you've already established can be a premium to have even in a non-premium. Just to have one of those top 6 guys that gives you the advantage every week, 5+ points over your opponent out of the box. So, yeah. I will mention I went last year. I didn't take a quarterback in the first 2 rounds of our Superflex startup. And I was a little worried about it, but I got lucky. I believed in Jalen Hurts, and he turned out to pay off. And I think that this year there's an opportunity with a couple of the highly touted guys last year, the rookies that came in last year, not really performing very good their rookie year. There's an opportunity to kind of hold off a little bit on the quarterback position and still be able to
hey, just because it's
establish
a super
yourself.
flex spot doesn't mean you have to have a quarterback there.
That's
it's
true.
It's just helpful.
Some of my best super flex teams, I've had to start 3 tight ends on certain weeks. So,
all right.
Well,
what else is there to get into, boys?
Well, you got anything, Captain?
I don't think so, man. I kind of covered a lot. I doubled up on mine on accident. I kept talking. Didn't know when to turn it off.
Yeah, well, it's just it's an overlapping strategy. I was just going to talk a little bit about being cognizant of contracts and kind of just
indeed
the team build. And you mentioned it
ahead.
With a lot of players shifting. You mentioned Tyreek, obviously Devontae Adams. So there's guys that have changed teams going into the 2022 season, and it's kind of affected their dynasty value in a big way. I would say that Devontae Adams is a big one. Let's see. In 2021, Mr. Adams. I'm going to do it here. Oh my gosh. I had it so ready to go.
2021.
2021.
I got Devontae Adams, ADP 2.
ADP 2.
Wide receiver 2.
Yeah.
After DK Metcalf. So that's an idea of how quickly something can change when Russell Wilson leaves town.
Yeah.
Okay, I've got it all here now. Sorry, wrong tab. Yeah, in Superflex startup ADP, I have him as the wide receiver 11, and then now this year he's 16. So he fell about 5 spots. Another guy who fell 5 spots is AJ Brown, apparently. I've seen him up in some spots, but according to Sleeper ADP, he went from the wide receiver 17 to 22. And then Tyreek Hill completely fell out of the top 25. He went from 8th last year, and he's not in the top 25 anymore, going to Miami. So, yeah, there's just – you never know what's going to happen. DK Metcalf is another player who was 13th in 2021. He's not in the top 25 anymore. So, I don't know. The free agency this year was kind of wild with high-end talent in the wide receiver room getting moved. And a few quarterbacks moved, Russell Wilson, Matt Ryan, and it affected other ADPs on their team. So I don't know. It's kind of important for me to target younger wide receivers that have a more predictable first couple of years, and to keep building the youth in the wide receiver room, because success as a wide receiver is becoming younger and younger. It's happening faster. So, yeah, and don't be afraid to go after rookies, man. Najee Harris took a huge jump. Jamar Chase, we've already mentioned, took a huge jump. Javonte Williams took a huge jump.
Elijah Mitchell
took a gigantic jump. So, yeah, that's what's up. CeeDee Lamb, he has the exodus of Amari Cooper to thank for that. So,
well, that's a thing too. Yeah, staying ahead of contracts, and then see when these are going to be expiring, and if these teams are willing to re-sign some of these guys, because then that's when you see them go elsewhere, and that's when you can prepare for that rookie who maybe just pans out and becomes your wide receiver 2 of that team, or what have you, wide receiver 1.
Yeah, Sky Moore style.
Sky Moore. Josh Palmer style. Oh, wait, he re-signed Mike Williams.
You sons of bitches. So, yeah, I don't know. That was a lot of nonsense.
There's a lot of stuff.
I would say probably the most important thing is pay attention to the age of your running backs, but that's just a teaser for next week.
Hell yeah.
Bum, bum, bum.
Don't chase the flash in the pan. Get yourself some established players.
Stay away from injury-prone players, for God's sakes.
Oh, jeez.
In a dynasty. Come on now. Let's not be doing this to ourselves.
Yeah.
All the people taking Saquon Barkley in the first round last year, it's like, come on, man. Like,
oof, those are
I'm all for taking a chance on him, but not in the first round. Like,
nah. Well, all right. Well, should we call it on that?
I guess
call
so.
On that note? Yeah.
I think I went through all my notes.
This has been a nice conversation, actually. It's almost like we've been in a few leagues and do a podcast together, because I feel like we were syncing on a lot of stuff there.
Yeah, we know each other. I'm like starting to go through my trades, and I'm like, yeah, that trade with you, and that trade with
Yeah.
This is like pre-podcast. We've been trade partners and shit.
Yeah. So, if you made it to the end, definitely come back next week. The running back longevity, Christian put a lot of fucking work into arranging data, and it's got to be the most touted episode from last year.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's vital, I would say vital, to